to establish that. Like the criterion of dissimilarity, the criterion of coherence, the criterion of embarrassment, multiple attestation. These tend to signal when a source datum may actually be authentic and worth considering. Now, if you can assess that this is an authentic piece, then what do you do with it? Well, now we're back to the question of inference to the best explanation. Based on the evidence, where are we likely to cast our lots in terms of weighing the options here? What is the best explanation? Now, let me make a couple of sub-points here. First of all, I think a predisposition towards naturalistic alternatives is a good position to be in. I'm an equal opportunity critic. I see a lot of Christians proclaiming miracles, and I'm highly skeptical of that. I don't think when the tent revivals come into town that people are being healed left and right. I think there are problems or better explanations for what's going on there. And with respect to that, also that I think that when you look at Christian miracles, not the least of which would be the resurrection of Jesus, I think that it does measure up to being the best explanation. If one were to explore the fundamental facts that undergird Jesus' resurrection, I think they stand up rather well to historical scrutiny, and that they far surpass the rival explanations, and thus we can affirm belief in that event.
I have nothing to add to that other than my Jewish friends say the exact same thing as do my Muslim friends.
Okay, I think we'll give you guys the last word if you think, unless you have something to add.
I mean, yeah, okay. I just have the same response basically. Everyone says the exact same thing. So, I mean, again, you know, what makes you think that yours is better? Your reasons for believing in your God is better.
Are you wanting the specific evidence for the resurrection? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, we don't need to get into a history.
I just gave you the criteria.
Right.
It's if you want to know about what makes an inference to the best explanation, best explanatory power and scope, least ad hoc, I mean, there are these devices put into place by which we would weigh various options and draw a conclusion. And I'm okay if Jews and Muslims use the same device. I'm happy with discussing the merits of the case.
Okay, I think that's as good of a place as any to stop the main portion of this event. At this point, we're going to open things up to the audience for a Q&A. You can bring the lights up. In just a moment, we're going to have a microphone set up on either side over here. For those of you who would like to ask a question, you can begin coming down the aisles towards the microphone at the side. A couple of brief comments before we get started. I would like to encourage you to ask challenging questions. Don't hold back on things that are challenging, but please do not be rude when you ask the questions. Also, this is an opportunity for you to ask questions, not an opportunity for you to chime in on the things that have been said in other ways. So please keep your questions, please keep the preface to them down to about 30 seconds. And if you would like to, you can address the question to one side specifically, or you can even address it to one person specifically on each side.
Yeah, I've got about 50 questions, and I got 30 seconds, so I'll limit it to one to the atheism side. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for having this. My question is this. I've got children, and I give my children all kinds of compelling reasons why they need to believe in me. And because they're young, they tend to believe those things. But I know as they get older, those same kinds of reasonings aren't going to work. And my question is this. Can you really love someone if you don't have a choice in the matter? I think it was said that, why can't God just make us love him? Why can't he just sort of force us and program it in us so that we don't have a choice? My question is, can you really love someone if you don't have a choice?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. And I bet that with regard to your children, I'm sure that you want your children to love you. And I'm sure that in part of that, in part of the way you raise your children, you don't take off and disappear and be gone. And if bad things happen to them, you don't do anything about it. I'm sure that they know you exist. Your presence is right there in front of them, and your care for them and your concern for them is quite evident. And so you've earned their love in that manner. And I think much of what Michael and I were suggesting today is that God is a kind of absentee parent, unlike you, I'm sure, where in fact it seems that he's not around and he allows really bad things to happen to us, and it's not so much a matter of not forcing us to love him, but it doesn't seem like he's giving us adequate reason to love him or even believe that he exists. And so there's a big disanalogy, I suspect, between the kind of father you are and the kind of father that we're suggesting God is.
Are we to reply to that?
If you'd like to briefly, you may.
Oh, well, of course, the parental presence is not a sufficient condition for amassing their undying love for you, too. I mean, we have lots of parents who are present, and the children are chafed by that. They may even go and file for emancipation, in which case they create distance. I don't think I have anything else to add.
Okay, we're gonna try to get in as many questions as we can, so we'll go ahead and move on.
My question is for Mr. Guthrie. Wouldn't your CEO analogy be more accurate if the R&D department believed that the CEO was Bill Gates and the HR department believed that the CEO was Cher? And as far as anybody can remember, nobody's ever actually seen the CEO come to any of the parties, and it's equally plausible that all decisions are made by a board of directors and there is no CEO.
Well, without the logistics of business, I'm just arguing that given two scenarios where one, say, representative or owner or CEO is flouts his existence to everybody, versus another scenario where he sort of comes privately, mingles in with the crowd, and people get to know him. If the end game is exactly the same, I can't find any good reason to think that somehow God has an obligation for scenario one instead of scenario two. If God's interest is only to acquire people to have a relationship with him, he's relatively indifferent whether you have the propositional knowledge God exists.
Can I respond to that? I mean, really quick, again, that just rests back on your assumption that, we would believing the same number of people would come to know and worship God were there more evidence for him. And I just think that's a preposterous presumption. It comes down to that. Really thinking that more evidence leads to the same number of believers is preposterous.
Preposterous both ways, because it's a purely speculative idea.
No, but okay.
Leave me outside.
My question is this one. Just a precursor to my question. I suffer from an incurable, very, very painful and progressive illness that has made achieving my goals a daily struggle and has made it very, very difficult for me to do what I feel is my life calling. With that in mind, what do you say about people as, let's say, Milton, who basically dedicated his life and his gift, an incredible talent for writing, to praising God through his word, and then is struck with blindness, and all of a sudden has this complete difficulty in doing what he enjoyed and praising God in his way, and basically is left the rest of his life with questions